The Batman villain Spellbinder is one of those characters who shouldn't work as well as he does. He's a thief with hypnosis tricks and a gaudy costume. Hardly groundbreaking stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. But what sets him apart is how each version of Batman has taken the same concept and twisted it into something completely new. What began as a con artist in bright spandex was reimagined as a sleazy school counsellor, and eventually became a monk who turns meditation into manipulation, as seen in 2004's The Batman. Each Spellbinder says something different about the world that created him. While he's not my favourite character, I think that aspect of his development is pretty cool though. So let's kick things off by talking about the very first version of Spellbinder. The original Spellbinder debuted in 1966's Detective Comics 358 as Delbert Billings, now there's a name, an art forger who discovered the mesmeric properties of symbols. He printed the bizarre symbols onto his costume and used an acrobatic routine to hypnotise his opponents, including Batman. These illusions were deadly. Dying in the hallucination meant dying in real life. And unsurprisingly, Batman eventually learned to overcome Spellbinder's powers by identifying recurring patterns in the illusion, and he knocked the loser out. Spellbinder returned sporadically in comics, once clashing with Superman, but he was not at all significant. Then in 1995's Detective Comics 691, during the Underworld Unleashed crossover, a new Spellbinder emerged. She was Billings' girlfriend Faye Moffat, and she accepted a deal with the demon Neron to gain illusion powers, which she sealed by murdering Billings. She took these new powers and used them to steal whatever she wanted, and it turns out that her tastes were pretty basic: money, clothes and jewellery. Her hallucinations were highly realistic, but could be defeated by simply closing your eyes. After Batman brought an end to her crime spree, she was notable for clashes with the birds of prey, but didn't really have any major roles. The first on-screen Spellbinder appeared in Batman Beyond, and this Spellbinder relied on technology rather than magic. He was Ira Billings, the school counsellor at Hamilton Hill High, who used a glowing orb to beam lifelike hallucinations into his victims' minds. Unlike the comic version, these illusions were entirely virtual, but that didn't mean that people couldn't get harmed while under his spell. In his debut story, Spellbinder targets students' wealthy parents, taking these troubled children and violating their minds, getting them to commit robberies on his behalf. This was a staggering betrayal of the trust placed in him as a counsellor, someone the children are supposed to be able to confide in, someone who cares about them and wants to help. But in reality, he resented the children and wanted to make them and their families suffer. And the scenarios he beamed into their minds were imposing, elaborate virtual adventures. Chelsea Cunningham explores a jungle, Mr. Deakins fights a war, Lorraine Tate faces monstrous aliens, and Batman battles zombies. These immersive illusions are cinematic and convincing despite their absurdity. Batman foils Spellbinder's scheme after he noted that all of the victims of Spellbinder's crimes were connected to his school and found out they had all been visiting Mr. Billings. When Spellbinder returned, his exploitation of troubled children took an even more sinister turn. He offered fantasy worlds in virtual reality pods for a price. Addicted children suffer withdrawal, fall into comas, or are forced into theft to fund their habit. Billings presents himself as a benevolent guide, but in reality, he's lazy, cruel, and self-serving. He weaponizes the children's misery for his own profit. In his final appearance, he escalates his schemes, framing Batman for the apparent murder of Mad Stan, who was safely hidden away in a VR pod, don't worry. The police readily accepted Batman's guilt, reflecting how people assume the worst in him. The story resolves with Mad Stan unharmed, hooray, and Spellbinder exposed. Ultimately, Batman Beyond transformed Spellbinder from a phony, fearful forger into an irredeemable villain, an entitled manipulator who exploited children, betrayed trust, and valued wealth above all else. His combination of technological prowess and moral corruption makes him one of the most chilling and unforgettable villains in the series, and his design was pretty sweet too. So when it came time for The Batman to introduce the Spellbinder in their second season, they went in a completely different direction. I've talked previously about how the writers on The Batman were very well aware of the long shadow cast by the DC animated universe. Many of their team had actually worked on these shows: Glenn Murakami, Mike Goguen, Stan Berkowitz, Bob Goodman, even Alan Burnett, and they went out of their way to avoid reproducing what they had done before. And this is perfectly illustrated by their Spellbinder. He was a master of the mystic arts, an enlightened mind that was able to access his third eye. But his enlightenment didn't make him become a better person. No, instead, realizing his own power only made him want to get more. And he achieves this primarily through hypnotism via the same third eye that represents knowledge. But he uses his ability to bring people under his control rather than share enlightenment. Getting a glimpse of his third eye can cause hallucinations and in the right circumstances allow him to hypnotize his targets. The world of the Batman doesn't really need to explain things like mysticism or sorcery. It never presented itself as a more down-to-earth show, so they can just say, oh yeah, this guy's a weird floating monk, and no one really questions it because it doesn't really seem out of place. I will say though that there's one part of his gimmick that I found a little hard to believe, and that's how the subliminal controls were triggered by the victims looking at clocks or watches at a very specific time. It seems very limiting. Imagine if Batman hadn't been sitting in front of a clock tower at the time the hypnosis was supposed to have kicked in. What would have happened then? Nothing, I guess. Spellbinder's scheme would have been foiled. In his one and only episode, The Butler Did It, he pulls off a string of daring robberies by hypnotizing the butlers of some of Gotham's wealthiest men, including Alfred Pennyworth. But these crimes were more of a test run for his true aim, stealing the mystical gem, the Eye of Sarkana, and using Gotham's wealthiest to do the deed. He posed as a photographer and used the flash from the camera to mask the beam from his third eye, and just like that, the billionaires were under his spell. Spellbinder wanted the gem not just because it was valuable or because it was said to heal blindness, but because it would enhance his existing powers, granting him a metaphorical fourth eye. Once he has the gem in his possession, he's able to create more realistic and damaging hallucinations, making Batman think he's trapped on an alien vessel. But what he hadn't counted on was Batman's own enlightenment. Batman's strong mind was able to perceive his own reality, presenting himself as a demonic bat that attacked Spellbinder. In the real world, once Batman cleared his head, he took out Spellbinder with a single kick to the face. When the police brought him in, they made sure to tape his third eye shut, effectively defanging him. Although he must have escaped at some point because he was later glimpsed in Rumour's prison for costumed criminals. But aside from that, his on-screen appearances were very limited. While he only had one significant story in the show, Spellbinder made a few appearances in the official tie-in comics. In the Batman Strikes number 31, Spellbinder struck again, taking control of Batman to have him kidnap a socialite in order to get a mystic item from her wealthy father. The hook of the issue was that Batman had no idea what he'd got up to during that unaccounted hour, and he followed a trail of clues, working his way backwards until he solved the mystery. When he realised that someone had taken control of him, he immediately thought of Spellbinder and implemented a countermeasure for his powers. Reflective lenses in his cowl. With his powers effectively neutralised, Batman took down Spellbinder with ease. And Spellbinder didn't fare much better in his next appearance, The Batman Strikes number 32. He was part of the Joker's new gang, which was made up of many supervillains. When Batman escaped from them, he took them down one by one, luring Spellbinder into a hall of mirrors, where his bright light was reflected back at him, knocking him down. His final appearance came in a single panel in The Batman Strikes number 45, where he appeared in a montage of foes that Batgirl had defeated over the course of a week. We didn't see how she got the better of him, but he was lumped together with other D-listers like Ragdoll, Everywhere Man and Maxi Zeus. So he started out strong, but he got progressively less capable with time, a bit like a magician who refuses to learn any new tricks. It's interesting to note that several wikis state that he was a stand-in for the Mad Hatter in this series, who for some reason wasn't able to appear. However, there are no citations on this, so I can't say with any certainty how true that is. At a glance, I can see the similarity. Mad Hatter uses mind control technology to force others to do his bidding, but Spellbinder is still pretty distinct. Ultimately, that doesn't matter though, because the Batman Spellbinder is a fine take on a mostly forgotten comic book villain. I'm particularly drawn to his reaction to his own enlightenment. In mysticism, the third eye represents awakening, the ability to see beyond what's in front of us, to understand truth, and to detach from greed and ego. But Spellbinder flips that on its head. His awakening didn't elevate him, it corrupted him. He saw the bigger picture of existence, that ultimately we are all one and that our physical existence is fleeting. But Spellbinder takes away completely the wrong message. It should dissolve the ego, but it inflates his. Where it should detach him from the physical world, it makes him covet it even more. His third eye becomes less a symbol of wisdom and more a spotlight for his ego. In essence, he's weaponized enlightenment. And that's a neat contrast to Batman, who also trains his mind, meditates, and pursues mastery of his physical form, but he uses discipline to protect others, not dominate them. What I enjoy about Spellbinder isn't that he's a great character, because with the best will in the world, he really isn't. But I like how he proves that even a generally weak idea can survive for decades when the right artists take a swing at it. A thief with an illusion gimmick shouldn't have lasted this long, but every generation of creators found a way to make him mean something. And I guess that is the secret to true longevity. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send a buck or two my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Friday to talk about an unassuming episode of Superman the Animated Series that sowed the seeds for the DC animated universe as we know it. Yes, I want to talk about speed demons. And next Monday I'll be going back to the results of my last Beware the Batman villain poll to talk about the ambitious assassin who got a little too big for his britches. It's time to talk about Silver Monkey. Hope to see you then.